talk about one of the GOATs, LeBron James. He came out and he had a comment saying that one thing that I know for sure, that I have been part of two teams that won the hardest championships in the NBA in league history. 2016, when they played the Warriors and came back 3-1, that was the team with Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, and all those guys. So that was the 73-9 Warriors.
Mm-hmm.
And then he came out and said that the other championship that he won, that was one of the hardest in league history, was the one where he won in the bubble. So my question to you guys is, did LeBron play in the two hardest championships in league history? And do you agree with that it's these two? Or do you think that there were harder championships? Perry.
The bubble, I'm not too sure, because I think the definition of hard, it kind of fluctuates. So I can see a difficult championship run of like the hardest of all time being 2016. Because I don't see too many superstars taking their team out of a 3-1 deficit. However, it was a self-imposed difficulty. But it was against the best team in the regular season. Now, the bubble, that's where my definition of hard kind of fluctuates, because I don't know how I can quantify how hard playing in a bubble playoff series, because I think there's the pros and cons. The cons are, yes, you are removed from your family, but the pros is that the season was shortened. The pros is that you didn't have to travel anymore. The pros is that you can rest right after your game and get your treatment right after the game. And all you had to do was focus on basketball. So I don't know about the bubble. I do think there were championships that may have been equal. I've seen LeBron's rationale and justification for it, but I think it's very subjective to call it the second or the hardest championship ever won in NBA history.
Mukhtar, do you believe that 2016 and 2020 championships for LeBron James were the hardest in NBA history?
I think no question 2016 was like one of the hardest championships to ever win, just because the story, like, although like Perry said it was self-inflicted, he did have to come back against the greatest regular season team of all time with the back-to-back MVP on that team, who doesn't perform in the finals, but that's another conversation. And yeah, I think that was one of the tougher ones in history. But as it pertains to the bubble, I think that is one of the toughest championships in NBA history, just because the way the NBA season is prepared is, okay, you have your training camp in September, you start the season in October, and then you ramp up until All-Star break. And then from All-Star break on, it's ramp up to playoffs, getting in the tip-top prime shape as you can, and just, like getting ready for the 48 minutes a game you're going to have to play, getting ready for, shorter possessions, more condensed basketball, more organized basketball. It's a whole shift in your mental gear, which I've noticed in the NBA over watching it. And I think them having to stop in March and having to maintain form until July, and then having to like restart everything all over again away from their families, I think that's, although they do have advantages, they can do their treatment right after the games. They can go rest as long as they want to. They don't have to travel. Like, those are huge perks, but just having to maintain shape and having to maintain prime shape for 12 months at the age of LeBron's age and like how many years he's been in the NBA, I think he's just absolutely right.
But like, the one thing that I like take away from that is the fact that everyone had the challenge. Not everyone had to try and come back from 3-1, you know what I mean? And against the best team in NBA history. So if everyone had the same challenges, Miami had the same challenges, doesn't that make it even across the board, across the league, and not that hard?
Not really, because he won at the end of the day. They didn't win. If they would have won, then I would have said yes, but they didn't win. Like, at the end of the day, what they did was actually amazing. Like, to keep in shape for 12 months out of the year and then be able to play like what he played, like 42 minutes a game in the playoffs. Come on, bro. At like what, 17 years in? Come on, man. That's unheard of. It's unheard of.
Before I move to Jaylon, I have another question for you. So if LeBron lost that, would he have lost one of the hardest championships ever?
Yeah,
Or it's a different
100%. I think so. Well, I think he would have. It would have. Yeah, it's one of the hardest championships because they had to stop everything and then pick it right back up, just like they never left. That's why I think it's harder.
So Jaylon, what do you make of this? Do you think that 2016 against the 73-9 Warriors is one of the hardest in NBA history, along with the bubble?
No. The reason being, if we look at just the finals, we saw. I don't think they would have won the series if Draymond didn't get suspended. I think LeBron should have gone suspended too because he actually initiated that entire action. Andrew Bogut was also injured, and Stephanie Curry didn't show up at all, which is obviously a pattern, like Muck said, but we have to factor in those things. So we also got almost 30-something points a game from Kyrie Irving, his wingman. So that lessened the load for LeBron. We also have to look at the road he traveled to get to the NBA Finals. He walked through the entire Eastern Conference. He played 5'9" Isaiah Thomas in the conference finals. He played the Atlanta Hawks in the second round. I forget who he played in the first round, but it's the East, right? So if we look at the teams that he had to get through to get to the finals, wasn't really a tough road. So I kind of washed that away. And in terms of the bubble, I think it was the easiest championship for him. For the first time in AD's career, he was having to play in big moments. The reason that I think he flourished in those big moments, no crowds. I don't think AD is a good player under pressure. The bubble was made for players so they didn't have to feel as much pressure in terms of it's sort of like an AAU tournament setting. What that means is that you got a bunch of different teams from obviously all over the country traveling in one, and they come to one venue. They play in that one venue. They don't travel anywhere. Like Perry said and Muck said, you get to rest right after the games. Treatment's right there. You walk to the hotel room after, ice baths. You get to relax, so on and so forth. But I think the thing that gets overlooked is the fact that if we look at the teams he played, so if we look at Portland, imagine having to travel to Portland for 2 games. We know what that does to teams. Then the next round, in the conference finals, he has to travel to Denver. High altitude, you got to play. I'm telling you that series goes to 6 if you got to play in Denver. We also have to look at the fact that Portland had no Zach Collins. Portland had no Damian Lillard. CJ had a broken back. We look at when they played Houston in the second round, Russell Westbrook was on half a leg. Daniel House was on Tinder. If we look at the conference finals, Denver had just played 14 straight games. So Denver got no rest. And obviously I can't hold that against LeBron, but they played 14 straight games. So you're playing Denver literally on their last breaths. On top of that, leading up to the finals, Anthony Davis led the Lakers in every statistical category except assists. So he led them in points, blocks, rebounds, steals, and field goal percentage. So we can't sit here and act like LeBron was like his last year in Cleveland where he was carrying everybody. LeBron got a lot of help. He got a lot of help from Anthony Davis. He got a lot of help from Rondo, and especially in the finals, the first game and the third game, Anthony Davis led both teams in scoring. So for me, both those championships are they're kind of over. We overindulge LeBron with things like this. We over exaggerate. So I don't think that they're the hardest championships in history. I think Michael Jordan, his last year, the last dance. Imagine your GM telling you, "Hey, next year, by the way, I'm trading everybody. Everybody's gone. And you still go out, you win a championship."
So just to give some context on what happened in 2016, the Warriors went 4-1 against the Rockets, 4-1 against the Blazers. It was an intense series against the Thunder. I know Jaylon remembers that very clearly.
Why you got to bring it up, bro?
Damn. No, 4-3. I got to bring it up. But just to compare to what the Cavs had to go through was 4-0 against the Pistons, Easy.
Come on, man. Don't. You know what? End the discussion, bro. The
4-0 against the Hawks, and then he walked through what's his name, DeMar DeRozan, and wasn't that the year DeMar DeRozan
Toronto?
Wasn't that the year DeMar DeRozan came out and said that if we had LeBron, we would win too.
LeBron.
That was that year, right? Yeah. Listen. So those are the matchups. So Perry, I know you had something to say about that.
Mukhtar, you already know this question was for you. Tell me when you're ready.
Ready.
I couldn't help but notice that you added the point in saying that the bubble was the most difficult championship in NBA history, right?
One of, yeah.
So you said it's one of two. So either it's one or it's two. You let me know. I
didn't specify. LeBron said that. LeBron specifically said he's won two of the hardest championships
and named them. And so that means it's one and two.
Okay, well, if you're gonna let me answer myself. And then I said his 2016 championship was one of the hardest championships in NBA history, and I said this bubble one was one of the hardest championships in NBA history. It's not the hardest championship. One of.
So he didn't. So neither of them rank in the top two in your opinion.
Well, I didn't really. Definitively, I wouldn't say yes right now.
So to the question, you're saying LeBron did not win the top two hardest championships.
I said he won one of
the top two.
Yeah.
So out of the two, which one was the toughest?
The Cleveland one for sure.
Okay, so the bubble one doesn't rank in terms of an added difficulty.
Well, an added difficulty, yes, it does.
Okay, so we're going to say that there was an extenuating circumstance that made the bubble an added difficulty in order to win a championship.
What's your question, Perry?
I asked it. There was the bubble added an extra layer of difficulty, right?
Yes, okay, in my opinion, yes.
Okay, so I have just two more questions and then I'm done. My next question, would you be able to understand why a player in the bubble would underperform?
Would I be able to understand? Because they're not mentally fit?
Oh, he's going to relate this back to Paul George, bro.
Yeah.
Leave it alone.
So why do we...
Leave it alone. Leave it alone.
Why are we Paul George off that one champion?
Harry, get over... Because he hit the side of the backboard. Why? That's why.
No. But Mukhtar is the one who argued it. You didn't. So I didn't ask you anything.
You're absolutely right.
Because you stayed with your point. You stayed with it. Mukhtar,
you know why?
I need to hear from you. Looking like a Disney movie hacker.
What?
Listen, Paul George. This is the big problem with Paul George, right? His mouth is what costs him the most of the time. Okay, he makes these built-in excuses, bro. And this is what you can do as a star: make an excuse. You have to be accountable for your mistakes and accountable for your performances. And his performances were subpar as a star. He clearly didn't look like the second best player on his team when they played against Denver that whole series.
But you just said that there's justification in saying that the bubble had added difficulty.
But situations are unique, Perry, and Paul George is in a unique situation.
Okay,
Paul George.
Next point. That makes
Come on, sense. Bro.
That makes
it does.
Sense.
Yes,
you
it does.
You can't take the same point that you used in saying that this was added difficulty.
Perry, you just try to make yourself feel good about your favorite player, and I'm
really
hurt you a little bit. It's okay.
I'm really not. Logically, both of your points cannot coexist. You contradicted yourself. Next point.
All right, let's move on.
Sounding smart to somebody dumb.
We're gonna stick on this GOAT.
Paul, get Paul George nuts out of your mouth, bro.
Paul